Misses and described them as cosmetic. Finally, emergency work gets underway today to repair a hole which almost swallowed up a double-decker bus in Norwich yesterday. The passengers escaped unhurt, but nearby houses were evacuated after the road caved in without warning. It apparently happened because underground chalk workings abandoned last century suddenly gave way. That's the news. It's 7:31. Richard.
Gordon, thank you. The surprise is that there's no surprise. I was hoping that Batman would be joining us at this particular moment, but it would appear we have a communication problem. I'm going to have words with the Commissioner and hope that we sort that out in time for Adam West to join Anne Diamond and Mike Morris on the programme at 8 o'clock this morning. Right now, though, it is true. This is the last time that we shall be going to Gotham City to watch the Caped Crusaders, Batman and Robin, sorting out one or two problems in Gotham City. Stay with us.
If you're ever confronted by an unpleasantly large odour problem, remember Airwick stick-ups, air fresheners that help solve big odour problems in small places.
Sweet, sharp, soft. Sweet sauce. Sweet, sweet, sharp, sharp. Sweet, sharp. Sweet, sharp, soft. Sweet, sharp, soft, soft. Sweet, sweet, sharp, soft. Sweet, sharp, soft. Chewy, fruity, sweet.
Fun, fun, fun. Twisting your tongue.
Chewy, sweetie. Fruity, fruity. Sweet, sharp, soft, chewy, fruity, sweet.
Twist your tongue.
Fruity, sweet.
Round a Roundtree's fruit pastel.
Bright light, big city. Gone to my baby's head. Oh, bright light, big city. Gone to my baby's head. Oh, I tried to tell the woman, but she don't believe a word I said.
Wash the city out of your hair every day with new Nivea shampoo and Nivea conditioner.
If you have a problem, if your tummy rumbles and you need a filling Weetabix breakfast, don't panic. Just send for the W Squad.
I wanna be loved by you, just you, nobody else but you. I wanna be loved by you, alone, boop boop be doo. I wanna be loved by you, just you, nobody else but you.
Soft and long and soft and strong and such good value. New Kitten Soft Bathroom Tissue by Dixell.
If you'd like to clean those hard-to-reach back teeth, either get a flip-top head or get a Reach toothbrush from Johnson & Johnson.
My friend John's a bit choosy about his food, but he took to Robinson's baby food straight away. Mind you, Mum's not very good with a spoon yet. Oops. Robinson's give John a really tasty menu. Breakfasts, dinners, desserts. Steady, Mum, that's his best bib. And Mum likes this healthy eating guide that's colour-coded to tell her what's in them and not in them. And because they're in packets, she can make just what John needs and safely save the rest. Any minute now. Wait for it. Oh, smashing. Didn't she do well? Go on, John, give her a grin. All you need to know about baby foods is Robinson's, naturally.
Okay, let's go. Next. 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 To be or not to be. Next.
Tree-bore mints are a minty bit stronger.
Great, but I need more of ya.
Aha.
Tree-bore mints are a minty bit stronger.
Champion soft grain bread has all the goodness of wheat, rye and maize, plus 30% more fibre than ordinary white. It's the stuff champions are made of.
Hi,
Hi, meet the girls from Hi, the great new colour weekly with super pin-ups, real-life stories, lots of action in Hi's own soap. There's a place for you in Hi, too. Tell us what you'd like to do. Find out the latest about fashion and beauty. You can say hi to Hi every week. This trendy makeup bag, free with #1. Hi.
A is for Alpha, B is for bites. See for yourself that they taste just right. D is for dinner, E is for eggs. Letters so tasty from A through to Z. Crisp golden potato and fluffy inside. Oven baked, grilled or fried. Made by Bird's Eye, you can't buy better. And called Alpha Bites, 'cause each one's a letter.
Simply had to tell you about our new Coleman's home-style cooking sauces. The special pack seals in the freshness and flavour, so there's no need for any added artificial colours or preservatives. They make an everyday meal simply delicious. Coleman's. Always make the best a touch better.
This is a Roundtree's breakaway. This belongs to Big Les Higgins.
Crisp wholemeal biscuit covered in real milk chocolate.
I'm unwrapping this for him.
Wholemeal breakaway, so good.
It's wicked.
A portrait of Ella Fitzgerald, 16 of her greatest hits in one superb digitally mastered collection. Available now on compact disc, album and cassette.
Crisp and Dry is specially blended to shake off food, leaving it deliciously crisp and dry.
When you fry with Crisp and Dry.
Well, for those of you who are mourning the sorry news that Batman will be no longer with us, don't despair, because he is still with us on Saturdays at 8:30. And next week, from 7:30 onwards, it'll be Happy Days. So that's a fantastic programme to stand in for Batman. Right, now weather-wise, we're back to that cold, chilly weather. The northerlies are back with us. Remember, yesterday was a lot milder. We had westerly winds, which were bringing wetter but milder weather. These northerly winds are bringing colder conditions, first of all this morning, to Scotland, where there's going to be quite a lot of snow around, and also in parts of Ireland and the west coast of England, but everywhere else, lovely sunny weather. Although it's going to be a bit cold, let's look at those temperatures now, and we can see that in the south, the top temperature is probably going to be 8 degrees Celsius down here in the southeast. Elsewhere, 7s and 6s, and yesterday we had a high of 11 degrees Celsius. I think that's 52 degrees Fahrenheit in the Isles of Scilly. And the wettest place yesterday in the United Kingdom was the Isle of Man, with 0.38 inches of rainfall. Now this afternoon you can see the weather pattern is very similar to this morning. The snow mainly being confined to Scotland. Look at those low temperatures up there as well, 3 degrees Celsius. But creeping into western coasts, particularly the north-facing western coasts, where it'll mainly fall as sleet, but mixed in with these rain showers in Ireland and the west coast, a few snow flurries. But you can see lots of nice sunny spells around this afternoon. A very quick look at the picture for this evening to see how today and the week's going to end up. Quite a dry finish to the day, very low temperatures up there in Scotland, -3, a frosty day. Right now, certainly not too frosty people. Anne Diamond and Mike Morris in Good Morning Britain.
Hello, it's 8 o'clock on Friday the 4th of March. You're watching Good Morning Britain from TVAM. I'm Anne Diamond.
And I'm Mike Morris. It's now a year since the terrible events at Zeebrugge, and later we'll be talking to a survivor about coming to terms with such a dreadful emotional trauma.
If you thought you'd seen the last of Batman, you'd be wrong, because Adam West is back for what we might call a grand finale. And if pop is more your line, then we have the Communards' new video, and they themselves will be along on the programme a bit later, near 9 o'clock.
Yes, we've also got reports on the royal progression through California, and Eduardo, Eddie the Eagle's big welcome from his hometown. Sensational, wasn't it?
Yeah, not forgetting, of course, a look at the weekend's television with the outspoken and equally controversial Mr. Greaves, and news from the glittering world of showbiz with Jason Pollock.
Well, all that coming up after the news from Gordon Honeycomb in London and Jeff Mead in Washington. Gordon.
Hello, good morning. Mrs Thatcher is back in London this morning after the NATO summit in Brussels. She'll make a statement to MPs about the summit today. It's expected she'll say that the summit leaders agreed to modernise NATO's short-range nuclear weapons, most of them on German soil. The summit adopted a compromise statement on the issue, but Britain and West Germany have interpreted it in different ways. Jerry Foley reports from Brussels.
NATO wakes up this morning still trying to clarify what exactly its leaders had agreed on during their two-day summit. The crunch issue was Europe's short-range nuclear missiles. They're based on German soil, and Chancellor Kohl, with an eye to upcoming local elections, was anxious to avoid a politically unpopular decision to modernise them. But Mrs. Thatcher wanted a firm commitment to modernise. In the end, she got a promise to update the missiles where necessary, and the Prime Minister seemed happy.
We use the word up-to-date. If it translates into German, there's virtually no difference between up-to-date and modernised.
As always, Mrs. Thatcher's position was closest to that of Mr. Reagan, now in his last few months as president. NATO defence ministers will meet in April to try and work out the detail of what the heads of government agreed on. But there's one thing that united everybody, and that is that President Reagan will travel to Moscow in summer for a possible arms deal on long-range missiles with the full backing of all of his alliance colleagues. Jerry Foley, TVAM, Brussels.
Here at home, a nationwide search is underway for hundreds of people who could be carrying paratyphoid, an infectious form of food poisoning. 38 cases have been notified and 11 people are in hospital. The outbreak has been traced to a function held in Birmingham in January to mark India's Independence Day. About 1,100 people were there and health officials are trying to contact them all. Emergency work gets underway today to repair a hole which almost swallowed up a double-decker bus in Norwich yesterday. The passengers escaped unhurt, but nearby houses were evacuated after the road caved in without warning. It apparently happened because underground chalk workings abandoned last century suddenly gave way. Britain's miners vote today on whether to continue the overtime ban they started last autumn in protest at a new disciplinary code. The NUM president, Arthur Scargill, was in favour of stepping up the action, but his executive decided to leave it to a pithead ballot. The result is expected on Sunday. Air traffic controllers have attacked the Civil Aviation Authority's promise to give more details of near misses involving civil aircraft. By doing so, the CAA hope to restore public confidence after a spate of mid-air incidents. The controllers' unions say this would only reveal the tip of the iceberg, and that the real number of near misses in British airspace would go unreported. Now it's over to Jeff Mead in Washington for the rest of today's international news. Jeff.
Thanks, Gordon, and good morning to you from Washington. In Punjab state in North India, at least 32 people have been killed in an attack by Sikh extremists. The gunmen opened fire on a holiday gathering in one of the bloodiest attacks since Sikhs began their fight for an independent state 6 years ago. Both Hindus and Sikhs were killed in the attack, the motive for which is still unknown. India's security forces have been put on alert in Delhi to prevent any Hindu backlash after the massacre. Meanwhile, 9 children and 7 adults have been gunned down by Tamil separatists in eastern Sri Lanka. In a surprise move early this morning, the US House of Representatives voted against giving new aid to the Contras, the anti-government guerrillas in Nicaragua. By just 8 votes, they threw out a $30 million package of non-military support. It means the Central American guerrillas now have no US government backing. President Reagan, who supports the Contras, has urged the House to reconsider. And America is stepping up its planned economic squeeze on Panama. Measures to topple General Noriega are now likely to include a total trade embargo and a freeze on Panamanian assets in the US. The American Secretary of State, George Shultz, says Noriega must go.
Noriega is a drug runner, and he has got to get out of there.
In the American presidential race, Republican frontrunner George Bush is doing a sweep of the crucial southern states in the final run-up to next week's Super Tuesday. From South Carolina, Anthony Dworkin.
For George Bush and his pack of Secret Servicemen, a whistle-stop tour of backwoods South Carolina. The Vice President knows the next 5 days are the most crucial of his political career. South Carolina's primary on Saturday is a trailer for the main event, the block of southern contests that have been dubbed Super Tuesday. In this huge conservative region, Bush's links to the president have given him an edge. Now all he needs is a good start.
And if I do well on Super Tuesday, I'm convinced I'll be the next president of the United States of America.
This weekend, George Bush has it all within his grasp. A clear win here tomorrow could carry him through to clinch his party's nomination on Super Tuesday next week. Anthony Dworkin, TVAM, in Charleston, South Carolina.
And finally, American architects will be hearing Prince Charles's controversial views on their profession this weekend. He arrives in Pittsburgh today, from where Richard Liddon reports.
The abandoned steel mills of Pittsburgh and the problem of what to do when old industries die. Prince Charles is coming here to see how one city was revived. The high-rise offices of the new service industries probably won't impress this royal visitor, who's already made the front pages. Prince Charles has been highly critical of architects and planners in previous speeches, so what's he going to say to them this time?
I think probably more of the same. He's been looking forward to being able to make a major statement on his attitude towards cities in the United States, and we're providing him a platform to do it.
And despite the cold, he's assured of a warm welcome. It's not all hard work for the Prince, though. Once the conference is over, he leaves the chill of Pennsylvania and heads for the warmth of Florida, where on Sunday he'll enjoy a game of polo. Richard Liddon, TVAM, Pittsburgh.
And that's it from me, Jeff Mead in Washington, handing you back to Gordon Honeycomb in London.
And in Los Angeles, the Duke and Duchess of York have been to sea on board the American nuclear-powered aircraft carrier Nimitz. The highlight was a flight deck display of American air power. But, as Peter Morris reports, the royal couple began the day on dry land.
First port of call was a school for children with learning difficulties, where the Duchess was an instant hit with the pupils.
Your flower in your hair. What's your name?
Next stop was the aircraft carrier Nimitz, the Duchess wearing a navy cap for the occasion, and later a leather jacket to watch the aerobatic displays. Then it was a brief separation for the couple, as the Duke flew off in a jet, leaving his pregnant wife to follow on more sedately in a helicopter. The first leg of the tour ends today with a visit to the UCLA campus, before the Duke and Duchess depart for the weekend to Palm Springs, where they'll attend a charity polo match. Peter Morris, TVAM in Los Angeles.
Cricket now. New Zealand made 451 for 5 wickets at the close of play on day 2 of the final test against England in Wellington. Meanwhile, England's cricketers have been warned by the test selectors, if you don't behave, you don't play. The selectors aim to stamp out indiscipline on the field. Finally, Britain's unlikely Winter Olympics star, Eddie Edwards, received a hero's welcome yesterday in his hometown of Cheltenham, from where Michael Voss now reports.
He got off to a flying start for Eddie the Eagle as a private plane waited to whisk him back to Cheltenham. After 5 weeks away, Eddie Edwards was looking forward to going home.
Yes, I am. Seems like forever, I've been away forever.
Hundreds of well-wishers lined the town centre to give Eddie a homecoming he'd never forget. Driven through the streets of Cheltenham on a brewery dray, the man who came last in the Olympic ski jumping was now receiving a hero's welcome. Then it was back to his parents' house for a short family reunion and a chance to drop off 5 weeks' worth of dirty washing from Calgary. This is just a flying visit home for Eddie, because next week the ski jumping starts all over again. Michael Voss, TVAM, Cheltenham.
And there'll be more from Michael Voss on Eddie's day in Cheltenham at about 8:15. That's the news. It's 9 minutes past 8. Back to Anne and Mike.
Gordon, thank you. It was on a Friday night, exactly a year ago, that what started out as a shopping trip to Belgium turned to a nightmare as the Herald of Free Enterprise capsized in Zeebrugge harbour.
Yes, and after the break, we're going to be talking to Eleanor Parker, a survivor of the tragedy, and to psychologist Peter Hodgkinson about just how those on board the ferry are coming to terms with the nightmare. All that after the break.
These beautiful UPVC products with a 10-year insurance-backed guarantee are available from the Facina National Network now.
Put it down. Now you're safe with that. Well, it won't kill you. Oh, well, I'm not sure, Bellish. Dodgy. Very suspect. I'll tell you what, you have an apple. No, you wouldn't like this.
Petit filou from Yoplait, the dessert truly fit for a king.
They wore their itsy bitsy teeny weeny POTUS Ultra Baby Bikini. That's what they wore to go out and play.
New Baby Bikini is an ultra-absorbent nappy from POTUS. It's super slim and a super fit and keeps babies super dry.
2, 3, 4, tell the people what they wore. They wore their itsy bitsy teeny weeny POTUS Ultra Baby Bikini. And in these nappies, they're happy to play.
Baby Bikini, the dry nappy from POTUS.
This is a Rowntree's breakaway. Looks alright, doesn't it?
Crisp wholemeal biscuit covered in real milk chocolate.
And this particular one belongs to my sister.
Wholemeal breakaway. So good.
It's wicked.
I'm a McCain oven chip pack.
Right for your kids and the old man. Better than chips from a chip pan.
40% less fat.
McCain oven chips really taste great.
Gone like a flash from your plate, mate. Chips that are bang up to date, mate. 40% less fat.
McCain oven chips. Better for taste, better for you.
I made the break.
If it ain't chocolate break, then you ain't made that break, so make the break.
Hello again, it's 12 minutes past 8. It was a year ago today that the cross-channel ferry, the Herald of Free Enterprise, sank off the Belgian coast at Zeebrugge in one of the worst disasters in British maritime history. Our reporter Sam Hall looks back now at that tragedy. Oh, we don't seem to be able to bring you that report. Maybe it's just as well, because joining us in the studio now is Eleanor Parker, who was the wife of Andrew Parker, the human bridge, you probably remember. He saved the lives of some 20 people that night. And we also have Peter Hodgkinson with us this morning, a clinical psychologist who's also the team leader of the Herald Assistance Unit, set up to help the survivors. I say maybe it's just as well we didn't see the report in a way, because Eleanor Parker has seen enough of that night, and she probably is very thankful that she won't have to see it again. Good morning, Eleanor.
Good morning.
It's a year on now. It seems an incredible thing that it's already a year ago. Has it been a very bad year for you, coming to terms with what happened that night?
It's an awful year. It has changed our life completely. And we're just living from day to day. It's a struggle to cope daily.
I know for you yourself, you suffer from a guilt feeling in a way. Why? Can you explain what that feeling is?
I always felt guilty of being alive because so many people died. And I can't understand why God has spared me.
You can't come to terms with that. It worries you. When the Filipino ferry disaster happened, in December, you immediately did something, didn't you? You set up an appeal for the surviving children. Did that help in a way, that you identified with people who were suffering a similar tragedy and you could do something to help?
Yes. The Zeebrugge disaster has affected me so much. It completely destroyed me. And last summer, I contemplated suicide. And the thoughts of suicide, being suicidal went away. And it came back again in November. And when I saw the Philippine ferry disaster, I was devastated. But it has given me an inner strength to carry on with life and look in a positive way. And I believe that I am the only Filipino in Europe who can understand exactly what those victims and survivors had been through in the Philippines. So it has given me an inner strength. It helped me in a way.
I think a lot of people watching this morning will say, you were incredibly lucky to be alive. Why contemplate suicide? Why do things get that bad?
It's because the suffering is just too much to bear. And there are times that I can't cope. My little brain and my little heart has got the limit to cope with all the sufferings, and there are times that I can't, and I want to end my miserable life.
But you have a daughter, Janice, don't you, who also went through it, who also survived?
Well, when you're feeling so low, you don't think of anybody anymore. I know it sounds selfish, but no one will understand what I'm going through unless you've been through it. all the survivors has got different sufferings. I don't understand Andrew's suffering. I don't understand Janice's suffering. They don't understand mine. We can't help each other.
Gosh, it sounds so desperate. Andrew, of course, is your husband. He is the man that we know now as the human bridge. In fact, his bravery is being rewarded on Tuesday at Buckingham Palace. He's receiving the George Medal, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
How has he come to terms with the same worries, the same problems and feelings of guilt?
Andrew is still suffering very badly with severe depression, lack of concentration, and he's a changed man. He used to be the softest, the kindest person you can ever meet, but the disaster has changed him completely. He became very tough, aggressive, and he changed his views of life, and I can't cope with it either. It's giving problem between us. Andrew hasn't cried at all since the ferry disaster.
Not at all.
It's all inside him. He's so bitter, and it has changed his character completely.
That's a terrible thing, isn't it? You're going back to Zeebrugge this weekend, and I know this, in a way you want to do it because there's a memorial service and it might be a final end to a terrible year, but in a way you don't want to go either, do you?
No, I'm not looking forward to it. I'm dreading it, because as I see the Zeebrugge seawater, it's going to be extremely painful for me, more painful than any survivors, because it will remind me of two disasters, the Zeebrugge and the Philippine ferry disaster, which killed almost 3,000 people, which left more than 3,000 orphan children. And, you know, it's going to be a very difficult day for me.
It certainly is. Eleanor, I think you've summed up exactly what you feel more eloquently than I've ever heard before. For the moment, thank you very much.
Yes, and we hope your suffering ceases soon, Eleanor. One of the people who can perhaps help in that cause is Peter Hodgkinson, who's team leader of the Herald Assistance Unit, which in a sense, Peter, is a psychological support group, isn't it, for the survivors and relatives of survivors?
That's right. The Herald Assistance Unit was set up by Kent County Council in the weeks following the disaster to offer some sort of emotional support to the victims of the disaster.
It's been said, hasn't it, that a tragedy at sea is the worst kind of tragedy for survivors in the sense of the traumas that it brings afterwards. Is that correct?
That's right. From the research studies, we know that 5 years on, people will be still suffering extensively. And I think you can understand that from the particular sorts of experiences that people would suffer in a maritime disaster. A sense of entombment, the dark, the cold, all the worst sort of fears that you and I can possibly imagine.
Eleanor was speaking very eloquently about the sense of guilt felt by people who have actually emerged from the wreckage. Is that your biggest enemy, the sense of guilt that they're feeling?
I think there are many different feelings that the survivors feel. Certainly there are a lot of very intrusive images that come during the day in the form of daydreams, or at night in the form of nightmares. The guilt is particularly difficult, as Eleanor's described it so eloquently, this sense of, why was I spared? Or more particularly, did I do enough? Did I do enough to help people? Which, I mean, I don't know whether Andrew experiences that. I know certainly many people who participated in rescuing so many others still feel, did I do enough?
Now, you have to take, in the course of your work, a fairly brave line yourself. You actually confront many of the survivors, don't you, with vivid memories of what happened, because in many ways that proves the best treatment.
That's right. In the work that we've done, certainly in each of the interviews, we've asked people to go through the story of the experience from start to finish. And you know that what happens is that it changes over time. So the more people go through the story, painful though it is, the more sense they make of their experiences. And I think it's very important for survivors of disaster to be able to make sense of what happened, to complete a formulation, because that increases the sense of mastery, because the sense is that the disaster has made them lose complete control.
Can I just ask a question on behalf of Eleanor? Will this end? Will this awful despair in her family end? Will it get better one day?
I wish I could say that yes, it would. The answer is that I don't know. What I know is that life has changed, and I think Eleanor made the very good point that there is actually some strength that she has found in herself out of these experiences, a different perspective on life and death.
Well, it's amazing to think that it was a year ago that it happened. Let's leave it there. You both. Thank you very much.